Hi, and welcome to the Hofline, your online hotline direct line to the women-only attorneys at Hofheimer Family Law. My name is Katie Carter. I'm so glad you're here. I'm an attorney at Hofheimer Family Law, a Virginia-based family law firm representing women exclusively in divorce, custody, and support cases. And I'm here today with Caitlin Walters, an attorney I've practiced with now for over a decade. And
So long.
so long, and who just recently has come back to the office from maternity leave.
Yes, I have.
How you doing?
It's such a loaded
Great.
question,
So
right?
great,
Like
right?
there's a little bit of that like excitement to, be around adults again is
Yeah.
always helpful. But I miss my kids. I miss
Yeah.
them a lot. So but we're surviving. I'm here and we're, doing great. They're loving daycare, of course, and so,
Yeah.
they're little traitors not being
Probably
just
better than
so
being at home
heartbroken.
because the kids are the worst.
I know, probably. But I'm doing all right being back. Excited to be back and hit the ground running.
Well, I'm happy you're back. For the record, it's
Thank
definitely
you.
nice. Definitely nice to have you around the office. I know your clients are happy to have you back too. But who wants to talk about that? Let's talk about kids, right? Like that's
Right.
that's that's what matters. What else is there? And it
Right.
makes it makes me think back to like the early days when we first started practicing together, and clients would come in and say that either, they didn't want to meet with us or whatever because we didn't have kids, we didn't get it. And we were so offended. We were like, no, we totally get it. But I
But
look
we
back,
didn't.
be a sweet
We had
summer
no clue.
child. What did you know about anything?
Yeah.
You
Well, we were
really
so naive.
I know. Oh, I know. So naive. You really do have to have kids, I think,
Hmm.
to get it, especially to get custody and visitation and visitation arrangements. And that's kind of my segue, from maternity leave to talking about custody arrangements in cases where the parents are no longer together. You've got a really, really little one, obviously just fresh back from maternity leave.
Yeah.
There's no question that what works for a school-aged kid or a teenager is different than what works for a baby. What would you recommend? What do you see happening in your cases where there's a baby versus, say, a school-aged child?
Yeah. So, and I even think, when we use the word baby, my almost 4 year old is still my baby, but
Oh,
there's even
absolutely.
there's even a difference between, an older baby and a younger baby, and a lot of things that have to go into play. I do think in general, when I have non-school age kids that are involved in a case, that's when I see it more likely that the court is actually going to favor more of a 50-50 arrangement because we don't have the concern of disruption of school. So this is where you may see, a week on, week off, or, something to that effect. Now, I do think for young kids, a week is a really long time to go without seeing either parent.
Mhm.
And so I think these are also where you would see 50-50 arrangements that are a little bit more complicated, for lack of a better word. Maybe we have where mom has every Monday, Tuesday, dad has every Wednesday, Thursday. We alternate Friday to Sunday. That way, nobody is having to go an extended period of time without seeing the kids. So I think that's where you might see a little bit more back and forth than you may see for older kids. I think also when we're looking at non-school age children, we also need to take into consideration issues like nursing or breastfeeding, and that's a big deal. And
Yeah.
I I think those are the cases where you really are probably going to need an expert to help educate the court, because the response that I get frequently from either male attorneys who haven't done it or female attorneys who didn't do it either is, well, she can just pump. Mom can just pump when she doesn't have the child. And
You pump then, Judge.
exactly. Katie knows way more than even I do that pumping is not the easiest thing in the world, and it is different than physically nursing a baby.
Yes.
So having a lactation consultant or some kind of expert that can explain that difference to a judge. I think there are also questions that come into play of how old is the nursing child. If we're looking at a child who's very, very young, newborn, less than a year, sometimes maybe less than 6 months, I think the court is going to be a little bit more understanding of nursing issues and that time away from mom and the overnights that would require that versus a child who's maybe older. Not that they're, the World Health Organization says we need to nurse until babies are, who
I think
two,
they say at
right?
least two now.
Two,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know what the current recommendation is, but much older than 6 months. And so you have a lot of older ideas, I think, that you just have to kind of address and educate,
Hmm.
that there's not this idea that pumping is just as easy as nursing, or that a 6-month-old should be done nursing, or a year-old should be done
Hmm.
nursing. um so those are issues, I think, that do also come up when we have younger kids that are involved in a custody schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. I I love those cases in the sense that I really relate deeply to the mothers. For my first child, I pumped exclusively for a little over a year, which was just miserable.
Because you're a rock star. That's
Oh no,
that's what that
I
means.
no, I think I was like just crazy, like like I look back on that time of my life and it was like such a blur. So and then with my second, I nursed until she was 2.5, and for a while I was like, she's literally never gonna give this up.
She's never gonna
Never,
stop. You're
never.
stuck.
She's like,
You're
nope,
stuck.
this is where I live, this is what I do, like this is it.
You're visiting her in
So
kindergarten to
yeah,
nurse during
no,
lunch.
I know, or college even. Like I don't know, like I was really concerned for a while. But so, I mean, I just know like if this is you, that we get it, as
Yeah.
like, there's 6 attorneys in our office. We're all moms, and we've all been there, in
Hmm.
various shades of experience. But I can't imagine having had a custody case to deal with on top of the challenges of having a newborn.
Right.
And I know, just know we get it, and we will absolutely, work to try and help you get the best custody arrangement that you can under the circumstances. But the way, custody cases are trending, the courts really support both parents being as involved as possible, which,
Hmm.
as a mom, I know it's hard to let go, kind of like what you've been through this week, Caitlin, with
I
coming
know where
back and coming back
I
and
want my baby
yeah,
with
I
me.
know.
I should have my
Yeah,
baby all the time. Why is
I
somebody
know.
else getting to, spend time? And there is also that just extra dynamic of, my kids right now are with daycare workers, and we have a great daycare and we really enjoy
Mhm.
sending them there. And we see the benefits for them. But I can't imagine the dynamic that comes in, that the other person who's getting to spend time with your
Mhm.
child when you're not, is somebody that you have a broken relationship with, because that's why you
Mhm.
guys are no longer together. So
And maybe
you
real
know, it is
concerns like
right.
addiction or
Hmm.
abuse or his mental health. Like it's not necessarily just a case of two good parents who want what's best for the kid. It's just he's not you. There
Right.
can be real issues there too that make the situation even more challenging.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you have different advice you would say for like the mother of a teenage kid?
Yes.
Not that we're
So
there yet. We're not there.
no, yeah, exactly. Teenagers are easy, right? That's what they
Yeah.
tell me. Just let
Oh
me believe
yeah,
it for
totally.
now.
Totally, because you
For
can
now.
reason with them and no more naps and no more
And they
nursing.
totally listen. They totally listen.
Yeah. Respectful, kind.
Perfect. I know I was when I was a teenager.
Mhm.
My mom would
Yeah. Oh
probably
yeah, it was
I
delightful.
probably agree.
Yeah.
Um, but when we're looking at older kids, I think this is where we do start to see some concerns related to education, especially. We a lot of times want children to have more consistency during the school week. Kids, everybody has a hard time dealing with change, and but especially I think kids have a hard time adjusting, and so we want to make sure that we can try as much as possible to not disrupt education, not disrupt the school week. Again, it's not a guarantee. I think in general, the courts are trending towards more of a as shared as possible schedule.
Mhm.
But I do think the judges are a little bit more inclined to listen to that concern when you do have those school age kids. Additionally, once we get to school age kids and teenagers and things like that, we have a bunch of other competing interests like extracurricular activities or friend activities. And, even though extracurriculars and friends shouldn't be more important than parents, they're still very important aspects of a child's life.
Mhm.
And so, we may have to become a lot more creative with the schedules that we can get. I've been doing a lot of custody arrangements lately for older children where we maybe have one schedule that the kids adhere to during the school year. Maybe that's where we see, maybe an extended weekend for the non-primary custodial parent, maybe a Thursday to a Monday every other weekend. So still getting a good amount of time, but not as much as a week on, week off. And then doing more of that week on, week off or a shared custody schedule during the summer. Because again, then we don't have the concern of interrupting school schedules and interrupting, oh, I left my backpack at dad's house with my school
Mhm.
project that's due today. And now
Yeah,
we've got to coordinate getting that to the kids at school. So, I think that's a lot of creativity that we see happen. And in general, I strongly recommend, especially when you're looking at custody schedules, if you and the other parent can reach an agreement, that is almost always going to serve your family
mhm.
and most importantly, your children better than a judge making a decision.
Absolutely. I feel like
Because,
I say that all the time. That's where the damage happens is in
yes,
litigation and the breakdown of the co-parenting relationship between mom and dad, not just a divorce or, two Christmases or whatever. Kids are
exactly.
so resilient, but they follow our lead too.
Yes, yes. And I think, when we get into a trial, there are so many rules that we have to follow. And, we're talking to a judge who doesn't know you, doesn't know dad, doesn't know your kids. They get a picture that we can paint for them. But at the end of the day, they're just making a decision and they're going to move on with their lives. They're not the ones stuck with whatever this schedule looks like.
Mhm.
So if you and the other parent can really sit down and try to put personal feelings aside, which I know is way easier said than done, but try to put some of that aside and really put the concern for your kids first. I think that's where we can see these creative schedules come into play that really are going to benefit everybody involved. But again,
Yeah.
especially benefit the kids because that's always the number one question is what is in the best interest of the children, not what's best for mom, not what's best for dad, not what is maybe best for the judge, but really
Yeah.
what is best for the kids that are involved.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for sure. I mean, it still can be really hard to accept though, even if you're coming to an agreement, even if you're ultimately able to, accept some kind of different parenting arrangement than you would have wished. Um, it's a challenge.
It
Do you
is.
have do you have specific advice, Caitlin, that you give to moms who are struggling with custodial arrangements?
Therapy. That's one of my big ones that I push.
Yes.
Talking to a professional that can help give you tools and resources to help you with the emotions of it because again it's very real and
Yeah.
I think a lot of clients that I have sometimes get a little concerned like oh if I go to therapy is he going to try to say I'm crazy and that's why I shouldn't have custody and I think mental health issues especially have a lot less of a stigma now than they used to and I think that's really a way to show the court that you are trying to manage this incredibly difficult, stressful
Mhm.
situation in a healthy, productive way. So,
Yeah.
therapy is always one of the big things that I suggest. And then, the second thing that I suggest is just really trying to remember that this other parent is going to be involved in your life now really forever. I mean, the courts and attorneys are going to be involved until the child turns 18 and then, we leave and we're no
Yeah.
longer involved. Court can't do anything. But you're going to have, hopefully graduations and holidays and weddings and all the grandkids that may come into play someday. And
Mhm.
so trying to remember those big picture ideas and those big picture implications of how you and
Yeah.
dad interact now, I think can really help with some of the emotion of it. But I mean, again, my first piece of advice is therapy. I think
Yeah.
parents need to be in therapy when they're going through this. You want somebody that, we can rely on our friends, and friends are great. And I'm not saying, don't make friends, but a lot of times our friends are there to, you're right, he's a piece of trash and he shouldn't be doing this
Yeah.
and you need to,
And he
whatever.
probably
And
is.
exactly, I'm almost certain he is, but that's not really helpful
Yeah.
to deal with those emotions. So
Yeah.
having that professional outlet, to help kind of give you again those tools and resources that you need to handle the emotion of it in a healthy manner.
Yeah, I mean, and I would just add that ideally you would have a strong co-parenting relationship, right? And I think
Hmm.
that it's not necessarily always something that exists from the word go. It's something that you have to build and work at over time. So if you think to kind of what you wish the relationship would look like, kind of a free exchange of kids and being able to talk together about the issues relating to them. Again, I'm talking about in a case where there's two good parents, not necessarily
Hmm.
a case where dad is, a real problem in terms of abuse or addiction or mental illness or anything like that.
Right.
But trying to think to the kind of custodial the kind of co-parenting relationship you want, and then to try and structure your interactions with your child's father so that you're able to have that eventually, even if it feels really strained and difficult now, even if you're like your mama heart is just breaking. Again, that's where therapy comes in, and not because you're crazy or because you have a mental illness. It's not mental
Right.
illness. It's a normal person under an extraordinary amount of stress,
Hmm.
and just having a productive outlet for dealing with those feelings, but then still being able to, deal effectively with your child's father, with any fiancés or future wives that might come into the picture as well. I think that's one of those things you sort of have to, to see through to the future on when it comes to, breakup or separation, a divorce. Chances are he and you will be in relationships in the future, and how do you want the kids to feel about that? How are you going
Right.
to help make sure they can navigate this and be in as healthy a mental space as possible? Because again, it isn't like, just like you said, Caitlin, it's not about mom, it's not about dad, it's about the kids. And if you
Hmm.
want healthy, well-adjusted, grown-up kids, then that has to start now, like when they're
Right.
younger. And you have the
Exactly.
power in a lot of ways to control how this turns out.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I know, again, it is easier for us to say on this side of it than to remember that when you're going through it. But,
Yeah, yeah,
we just hope that hearing this now can help. And you're like, I know they said something about, they were rambling, who knows about,
yeah.
her
I
4.5 month
know.
old or whatever, we were talking about. But there, we really want to encourage our clients to think through those things because, I don't ever want to do anything in a case that is going to make things more contentious or more difficult. Because again, like I said, once your case is done, I'm out and it's
Yeah.
not affecting me long term. And, so I think all of the attorneys here are really committed to that idea of we really do want to try to help you see what is going to be best for your kids. Again, we still represent you. We still obviously advocate for your interests, but we're going to have those upfront discussions of, think about how this may impact in the
Yeah,
future.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and there's a lot to consider. I mean, and especially
Hmm.
especially if everyone's struggling now. I mean, therapy for the kids is also something to consider, but just, some points to keep in mind as you begin to navigate the complexity of
Yeah.
of of parenting arrangements. And keep in mind too, we didn't say this yet, but everything as it relates to custody, visitation, and child support is always modifiable based on a material change in circumstances. So
Yes.
whether we're talking about something that you agreed on in a written document, or whether it's something that happens when you go to court and the judge issues an order in your case, as soon as there's a material change, so like as quickly as six to 12 months after your previous determination, you can always petition for a modification. So if the judge gets it completely wrong, or if you agreed to try something and it just isn't working, or the children are really suffering, that's something that that we handle. That a modification to an existing order or an existing agreement is something that we do all the time,
Hmm.
and that would be a reason to petition for a different kind of custody and visitation order in your case. So
Yes.
even whatever it is today, or whatever it will be when you guys sit down and reach an agreement, or whenever you get up in front of that judge, you're not stuck.
Right.
It's not forever and ever. It's not like there's nothing you can do, or anything bad can happen and it's just going to be like that.
Right.
But we're still going to look at best interest of the child, and still going to review and make a determination as they grow and change about what's appropriate for your kids and your family and your situation.
Yep.
Yeah. Did you have anything else to add, Caitlin? It's such an important topic.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think I would just really recommend that you meet with an attorney if you think custody is going to be an issue in your case, or even if you don't think custody is going to be an issue in your case, because
Yeah.
sometimes it comes up when we don't think it does. Because there are things that you can do even before the courts get involved that can have an impact on custody and visitation schedules, things that you're going to want to look out for, consider. And so again, I think talking specifically because custody is so incredibly fact specific for each individual family. We can
Yeah.
tell you the general ideas of what we see, but it is so incredibly specific on the facts and circumstances that exist that really, if you can talk to somebody, a professional that does this, family law, and has experience with these different kinds of issues to really just help, you as you navigate moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for your time.
Yeah,
As always, it's really helpful and such good advice. And I know you're a little sad to be back, but I know your
I
clients
know.
are really, really glad to have you.
I'm
It's
trying
important.
not to cry while I'm here every day. And
I
like our
know.
our daycare has a little like webcam we can sneak in and look on, and it's not working
Yeah.
currently. And so of course,
Oh
that's just
no, so you're
impossible.
extra
I'm
anxious.
extra anxious that I can't spy on my baby. So
But your clients need you.
they
They,
do.
need a strong advocate. Mothers need a strong advocate. I think there's just
Yes.
so much, misinformation out there that it's really important to know what you're entitled to and know how the law works, and understand, what you can do and how it operates.
Yeah.
So if you have any more questions, I definitely encourage you to visit our website at www.hoflaw.com. That's HOFLAW.com. We've got 4 free books, a ton of free reports, a pretty extensive blog section, and just tons of information that you can access so you can learn a little bit more about custody and divorce if that relates to you, cases in Virginia. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys soon.